Here's your host, Steve Yusko.
Welcome to the show, friends. We're going to hear from Dave Marsh from the Wellspring of Talent here on Long Island. Dave is a bassist, great guy, singer-songwriter. And here's some teasers of what you can expect in today's show.
That New Year's, I had gone to the Ramble and seen them play with Levon, and then Levon died in April. And then the next thing I know, it's July, and we're opening for them.
If you looked at your younger self, or you look at these, let's say a young artist, could be an older artist too, is what advice would you give them?
We played with Richie Havens, we played with, and they were all on the bill with us. And the cool thing about that was that, you know, there was no, you know, backstage. It was like everybody, it was just like an intermingling little thing. So certain people we did get to talk to, which was really kind of cool. So we got to cross-pollinate with a lot of artists that were really, you know, that we knew, that we never thought we'd be in the same place with.
I'm so excited about today's guest. Dave Marsh is a local singer, songwriter, bass player, and founding member of the critically acclaimed folk rock ensemble Miles to Dayton. His influences include Ryan Adams, Johnny Cash, Ray LaMontagne, and John Lennon, just to name a few. Dave has shared the stage with such artists as Jen Chapin, Tom Paxton, Richie Havens, and Levon Helm's Dirt Farmer Band. And I welcome Dave Marsh to the Long Island Sound Podcast. So good to have you here, Dave.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Please call me Dave.
Sure. All right. So now I'll call you Dave. And I can still call you Marsh, right?
Yep.
So, real things back.
Just don't call me late to dinner.
When did you... okay. Here we go. All right. It's going to be one of those interviews.
Yep.
I like it. I like it already. So let me ask you this. When did you pick up an instrument, and did you come from a musical family, and kind of give me some foundation there, if you would?
And that is a great question. Yes. I started playing music in 4th grade. I wanted to play drums, and they had too many students signed up for drums, so I ended up playing saxophone, and that lasted a few months. I absolutely hated it. But I come from a musical family. My grandfather was an accordion teacher. He had an accordion school at Comac, Long Island. He's a piano tuner. And music has always been very, very big in our family. We were, you know, constantly, you know, not necessarily pushed, but, you know, influenced to, you know, enthused to play as often as possible. And, my sister and my brother and I still do to this day. The influence came hugely from my grandfather, who, it's so funny, like, was just, you know, every Christmas we would have to get around, you know, we'd have to learn songs, and like after dinner my grandfather would line us all up and we'd have to play something for the family, and I've played a lot of stages on Long Island and a lot of stages all over the place. That was the most nerve-wracking audience to ever play in front of, you know. But, you know, it helped us learn.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So I come from a Polish heritage, Polish family, so there was a lot of accordion players. And I was thinking about my cousin Steve, who's an excellent musician, accordion player, and his dad would make him drag that son of a bitch thing around in the trunk and drag it out at family parties. He's like, he rolling his eyes like, oh God, you know, bring out the monkey, start the grinder and start going. But what's amazing too to me, you know, you said you started with the saxophone. How many musicians and artists and people who even dabble like me in it start out on a completely different instrument than what they settle in? You know, have you ever picked up the saxophone since, or is that like gone?
Nah, it's funny though. One of the things I remember about playing the saxophone was that it came quickly. Like, I was able to pick up reading music. I was able to, you know, understand rhythmic pattern at that point. And it was strangely comfortable. As I got older, you know, it took a few years more. I was in 4th grade. I I remember a friend of mine got an electric guitar for Christmas. And of course, that's usually the way it happens. Your friend gets an electric guitar and you're like, I want that. You know? So I finally convinced my dad to get me a guitar, and I remember I got like a Stratocaster knockoff and a little Gorilla amp, as I think most of us had. And I just remember like not knowing how to do a single thing with it. But I just remember, you know, like, oh, I have this now. And then, and I think I was maybe 12 at the time. And then flash forward to, you know, like by the time I got into high school, you know, that's when I was in like the church youth group, and people there were playing instruments. And I was like, I think I really want to be able to play with my friends. So we would, you know, I just got more and more into it, and eventually picked up, you know, an acoustic guitar, and then it started to all make sense. So I started taking lessons from a guy named Eddie Franz, who is still pretty well known around these areas. He plays in a Beatle tribute band called Mostly Mop Top, I believe. I took lessons for a short time. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. No, that's okay. So I apologize.
No, that's okay. I'll cut you right off. Don't worry. Just if you see me do this, that means I got that from my wife. You know, if those are listening, I'm running my hand across my throat, which my wife usually does when I ramble. So I'll be rude right off the bat. Okay, Dave. So it's interesting to me, you know, the migration from playing guitar to bass, that happens often, but getting, you know, bass is a rhythm instrument, having that kind of ingrained into you early is kind of a cool thing. And then there is that switch from strumming, picking to rhythm playing on a bass. Tell me about that transition for you. Because you're known as a bass player predominantly, I would say, yes? Or... Yes. Okay, so when did that? Go ahead.
You know how it goes. Bass players are never picked to be the bass player. They're always the guitar player when there's a band of too many guitar players, and they end up becoming the bass player, more or less. I didn't choose the bass. Man. The bass chose me. Yep.
Right.
So,
but bass players are always in demand, for sure.
Well, that was it. And, you know, and that's exactly how it happened, you know. All my friends were playing guitar, and it was like, all right, you know, especially like in like youth group, you know, we were playing, and there'd be like 4 guitar players. And I was like, you know, this is ridiculous. So I commandeered a bass. And when I started playing that, I started to really enjoy it. I remember when I was in high school, during my lunch break, I would go to the band room and I would ask to borrow the bass, and I would go and sit in the practice rooms and play bass. And my one of my teachers, who wasn't actually one of the band teachers, I wasn't in band, I wasn't in any of that stuff. I was just in chorus.
Okay.
And but a lot of the band teachers were younger at the time. There was there was that turnover where they were bringing in younger teachers at that point. A lot of the older teachers retired, and they'd be like, "What's up with this kid? He keeps going and he wants to borrow the bass, and he goes in and practices in the practice room." They're like, "We can't even get our own kids to do this stuff. This strange kid just keeps coming in and asking to borrow the bass." Okay. And then it just I got so comfortable with it. I remember I'd like sit up at night when I'd get home and just I'd have it like right next to my bed, and I would just pick up the bass, watch TV, and just sit there and play bass. And then it just, you know, you kind of learn as a guitar player after a little while, and you just kind of evolve after a while. And then comes the day that you play with the drummer, and you realize that, oh, I'm not the guitar instrument. I'm part of this rhythmic section. You know, I have to be part of this now. This is where I belong. I have to, you know, kind of create this
hone in on
structure. That. Yeah. So
let me ask you this. So my assumption would be you played the guitar, the sideways bass, right?
Yeah.
I'm an idiot, right? So at what point because I'm fascinated by this. I've seen baseball, I've seen the big upright bass players, just kind of an interesting way to play. I've seen electric basses that are stand-up basses. David Noyes from the Walkers uses that often. What, I assume you do that, right?
Yes.
And when would you use that as opposed to the normal bass? I know I'm not saying it right.
You're playing
you know what I mean?
bass.
I mean, upright. Yeah, at what point would a bass player say, "Hey, I want to do the upright bass"? Is it based on the genre or the song, or what was it for you?
It's funny. I'm still kind of new to the upright bass. I can play it. I have one. It's not fun to cart around, so I have a habit of just being like, "Oh, I'll just play this one today." Where's the upright? It was kind of big. I really didn't want to bring it in the car, so I would just brought the electric bass. But I have one. I like playing it. I'm still a little timid, especially considering that three of the members of my band are all string teachers, and it's quite intimidating when I show up with that thing, and they're like, "You're holding it wrong. Your hands are in the wrong position. It's not right." So it's just kind of like,
take off the damn teacher hat and let's just play, right?
Exactly. Well, that's kind of it, Like, I learned from playing with other people. It's like I wasn't formally trained, and I don't know if you're the same as me, but, I would go out and play with different people, and that's how I learned, and that's how I got better. Somebody'd say, "Hey, we need a bass player." Next thing you know, you're playing a bar gig with a bunch of strangers, but you're the bass player, and you're learning from playing with them. So,
Yep. So I played in a church group as well later in life. I'm not a great guitar player, so I can get through it, And then Rob, the drummer, was like, "Hey, we need some bottom to this, And I'm like, "What do you mean? He goes, "We need a bass. You think you can play bass?" Same thing. It's probably a story that's been told 1,000 times. And I started playing it, and I still have to work on it. But it, as I listened back, because we recorded everything, every practice we did, to kind of like checking your golf swing, to see, okay, how did we do, when you listen to the whole ensemble come out. And man, what a difference putting bass into that made a difference in the song. To me, it was very subtle, but very different, and really gave to the fullness of the contemporary Christian music we were doing at the time. So it's probably the same story for a lot of people, how they got into bass, playing the bass. Hey, let's do this, Dave. Let's take a quick break. And I got a shitload of questions for you. We're going to talk about everybody in the Miles to Dayton and pick them apart. And no, I'm kidding.
No, you can,
hey, we're into that. We could do it. Yeah, you're the first one in. I mean, you get first shot as far as I'm concerned.
Take all the time we need. I'll be happy to.
Hey, everybody, we will be right back with Dave Marsh. We're having lots of fun, lots of good pointers, a lot of great stuff coming up. Stick with us.
Are you ready for the ultimate podcasting adventure? The Long Island Sound Podcast offers you not one, but 2 ways to engage with our captivating content. Tune in to our audio podcast on your favorite platform and let your imagination paint vivid pictures of Long Island stories. Or if you're craving a visual feast, catch our video podcast on Spotify and on the Long Island Sound YouTube channel. Double the options, double the excitement.
Hey everyone, we are back with Dave Marsh. Dave, we were talking about Miles to Dayton, but I've seen you in the Cosmic Orchestra. I saw you with Cassandra House at the Great South Bay Music Festival. Tell me about playing with other people, how that came about, how you curated these different groups, which I think is so exciting. I think it's really great.
Okay. Yeah. First off, I think you got John, is my brother-in-law, plays in the Cosmic Orchestra. I don't. But
you don't? They didn't invite you?
No.
Son of a bitch. We got to.
Well, they have Pat.
All right.
Falco.
All right. So now we've got a bit of a controversy here. Well, their bass player is okay. I think they could probably use you. I get confused a lot. Thanks for pointing that out on my show.
No worries,
I appreciate it. And we'll edit that right out.
No worries. No worries. So, Oh, yeah. So I also play with Cassandra House. I've been playing with her for a while now. She and I have been playing probably close to 15 years together now. I met Cassandra House at an open mic night at the Brick House Brewery, and I saw her playing.
Okay.
And I thought I was pretty cool at the time, so I figured I'd be like, let me go show off my shine a little bit. And I went up and I'm like, hey, how's it going? I saw you up there. You're pretty good. Would you ever like to play sometime? And I remember I actually still have the phone number. She wrote her phone number in crayon on the back of a kid's menu. And I was like, all right. But we became strange friends. We had a strange connection, the two of us. We've been friends ever since.
Nice.
And I actually did start making music with her. Obviously, again, falls into the everybody needs a bass player thing. And
right.
We started connecting. There was a great place called the Gray Horse Tavern, and
sure.
I started.
Which is changing again now.
Yes, it is.
Which is changing to people's pub, I think it is, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see how, because I think they have a really good area right by the bar, band setup. So hopefully they didn't reconfigure the place too much. But
it's
I've
really
seen a few people there, and really enjoy it. Good crowd.
Yeah,
good vibe there. I remember I was talking to Chris Marshak, and Chris is just a really nice guy. He actually hosted one of my podcasts with Mark Burford from Blue Point Brewery, who's a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
Have yet to meet him in person. I can't wait till I do, but had so many interesting stories. But in talking to Chris, he goes, I'm working with Cassandra House. You got to talk to her. And then I heard Cassandra and seeing both of you guys, and it's kind of goofy for me. I'm kind of tickled that I'm talking to a guy who's on stage at a festival playing in front of thousands of people. So it was, you guys did great. It was just a really great,
Thank you.
A great vibe going on in stage. And it was really, it turned out to be a really nice festival. First time I went, I went for all 3 days. I was exhausted, but had a great time.
It was my sister, my brother-in-law, and I, and the three of us, just started. My sister and I had come from a different group, which had her boyfriend in it at the time, and they broke up. And my sister kind of got to a point where she was like, I don't know if I want to do music anymore. She knew John from high school, and they had both connected again after she had broken up with her boyfriend at the time. John was on his way back from Chicago, where he had moved and was teaching there. And he had gone through a terrible breakup, and then they connected and started making music together. And they said, well, why don't we ask Dave to play? And the three of us started, working on stuff. And that was 20 years ago. We're celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. So
that's nice.
We started writing music after dinner in the basement, put together a demo, and then started running around playing all over the place. And then we started, putting new pieces in, and then eventually John's sisters joined the group, and it's been, full speed ahead ever since.
That's nice. You know what's nice about having music teachers, and a lot of musicians are also music teachers, but having that career during the school year and then having time in the summer to really kind of play out when things really kick in is really kind of neat. Let me ask you this, though. So
Sure.
Does everybody write songs in Miles to Dayton, or who's the predominant songwriter? And do you do it collaboratively, or do you bring something into the band and say, hey, I'm messing around with this. What do you think? How do you approach it?
That's a great question. It's predominantly John. John is he writes the majority of the songs. Especially in the beginning, we would collaborate on a lot of things, a lot of times the music. But John lyrically was the guy. And there was a point where John was so prolific, it was super intimidating. He was churning out songs like a machine. I remember he would tell me, he's like, sometimes I just go to school and I'll be walking through the hallway and I'll hear a song in my head, and then I just go home and write it. I'm like meticulously, maybe I should tune my guitar to sound like this. Maybe, I don't know if I like these lyrics. And then like, 3 months later, I have like the chorus. But John
Right,
is,
right.
John is definitely, he's an amazing songwriter. And, I'm grateful to have learned over time from him as well. As we had collaborated, when we finally got, we had 4 albums. By the time we got to the last album, John and I were collaborating quite a bit, and I felt a lot more confident writing on my own as well. And I still dabble in that quite a bit, so, and we're doing it even now, as we're getting ready, with our 20th anniversary to start, working on some, start introducing some new material and showing off what we've been working on. So,
what's amazing to me is those who can, create. I'll call people creatives, right? Who the muse hits you. Like, to me, it hits me. I'm getting better at it just because I'm interviewing people and say, record this, write this down. This is a good phrase, that sort of thing. I still have to get the discipline of piecing it together. But then you have somebody like John, who's, as you said, is prolific at it. And you almost look at them and go, hey, they're kind of wired that way. So maybe it's something I can learn to develop and go down that road. Let me ask you this, Dave. Have you ever sat down, blank sheet of paper, and say, okay, we're going to write a song tonight? Or does the stew need to be put together in different places first?
In the beginning, it used to come from different places. So John would start working on something, and then he would bring it to my sister and I would start writing a bass line. And I remember in the beginning, John's songwriting style was very complex. Like, he didn't write in a form that I was used to. I was more used to like this simplistic thing, and he was adding all these changes, and I was like, dude, like, really? I remember it would be after dinner, and we'd be in the basement, and I'd have my bass out, and John would be working. All right, so I wrote this part, and he would play it for me, and then it would change, and then it would change again, and then there would be the bridge, and then I was like, this is exhausting. Can we just record this, and I'm going to take it home and listen to it, and then we'll regroup again, because this is a lot, And
right.
It definitely took a little adjusting to finally, kind of mesh with how his style was. And it's a growing process in being in a band with somebody, especially for 20 years, where you kind of have understanding of styles, and even John coming from a classical background and me coming from, this weird melting pot of everything. I mean, I played in bands, everything from like punk rock to folk to church music to, anything I can get my hands on. I played in a Jimmy Buffett tribute band. I think Ed Travers, right?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah,
sure.
I bust Ed's balls all the time. Oh really? Yeah. So
20 years
my guitar teacher, my guitar teacher Mike Nugent plays with Ed here and there.
I played with Mike for a long time.
Did you? Oh, Mike's the best. Mike's the best. Mike's one of the most humble guys that you'll ever meet. And I tell you, just as an offshoot, I credit Mike for making it easy for me, a quote, non-musician. I play music, but a non-musician who's opened the doors for me like you wouldn't believe, with his blessing, said, yeah, no, mention my name. And I've mentioned his name. And, oh yeah, I know Mike. What a nice guy. If Mike says you're a good guy, you're a good guy too, and I'm telling you, it just boom, boom, boom. It went from there. But what also surprises me, just another tangent, is how many musicians know each other and are ships passing in the night on gigs.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And like, and 20 years go by and like, wow, I wish I was playing with him, because I enjoyed his stuff, type of thing. I think it's just, it's kind of fascinating. But I want to tune into, not pun intended. I want to tune into what you were saying about John having this classical background, you having a mix of different things. You know, I was just thinking about the Grateful Dead. You know, the bass player in the Grateful Dead came from a jazz background, and you know how that influences it. So let me ask this of you as far as where you're playing now. And I hate locking people into genres, but with these different influences, have you seen your playing style and or music kind of expand out, or are you kind of true to the folk aspect of things? Is that a fair question?
So with Miles to Dayton, I've brought in a lot of different styles, as has John. Surprisingly, we met in the middle of the road on a lot of different things, because John had been listening to similar things that I had been listening to when he was in college. So like we would get together and he'd be like, "You listen to that band?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, it's weird." And, you know, I mean, I bring everything, you know, from, you know, trying to give some good examples of different like bands that I listened to. There was this one band, you know, you've heard of like Jimmy Eat World. That's like an emo band. Mm-hmm. We brought that to the table. You know, there's songs on the last Miles to Dayton album that I was bringing in Rush parts. Rush is like my favorite band.
Yeah.
So I like
talk about a band that can't be locked into any genre, right?
I know. But I was pulling in, you know, riffs that sounded like Geddy Lee bass lines. And like, you know, it's like we would get to a part of the bridge and I'd be like, well, I'm going to play this part here. This is a straight up Geddy type part. And I would drop that in, but it still worked because there was, you know, it was always all these interchangeable parts that would make the song. And that's what I was getting to as we progressed over time. We got used to the way that each other played and how we could add these things to the pot and create this, you know, big picture. And, and something that appeals to a lot of people. You know, you're giving them folk, you're giving them rock at the same time, and you're throwing in classical. It all goes into the pot at the end of the day. You know, 4-part harmony. I mean, when I was 15, I was introduced to Crosby, Stills and Nash and Young.
Yep.
4-Way Street, which is still my #1 album, but still like I can listen to that album and get chills like I heard it the first time.
I agree with you.
But that became the structure for bands, you know, from that point on. I was like, if I'm going to have a band, I want to have harmony. I want to have this vibe that's happening. And we were able to do that in Miles to Dayton, where we've gone from 4 to 5-part harmonies at times, which is, it's like everybody's doing something there, you know. But you know, that's
when I saw you guys to cut you off. When I saw you guys play at Stony Brook, right? The one thing I really cued into was the joy each of you had playing. I mean, that was so vivid in my memory to. You know, I didn't know who was who related to who, but there was this great chemistry going back and forth. And, you know, you can't fake joy, in my opinion, when you watch it. And now as I watch musicians, I'm looking for different things. I'm looking for how they cue each other, you know, to take a lead and do these different things. And it's so subtle. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes like, take it, you take it, you know, that sort of thing. You know, like, hey, I'm over here. I want you to play that lead, you know, type of thing. So that was so joyful to watch that joy within your group. All right, I'm going to ask you another question. You're going on a road trip. Who are your 3 go-to artists or bands that you're going to play on your 5-hour road trip to wherever?
Oh, wow. You know, that's funny that you say that.
Come on. I mean, you only got 3. You can only listen to 3. Well, I didn't say it was going to be easy, this interview.
I did an 11-hour trip down to Nashville to play with Cass, and we were pretty good about it. I always like, sometimes I kind of like the mixed bag. I mean, three bands, Led Zeppelin. I mean,
okay. Let's
say Led Zeppelin, I think, is kind of something that we all kind of get into. I mean, a lot. I like Jason Isbell a lot. He's been so great these days. A lot of his music is so influential and really great. And I have to say the Grateful Dead too.
All right, okay. We can continue this interview because you've chosen the right people. Now, who is the middle guy again?
Jason Isbell.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Jason Isbell?
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no idea who he is. Tell me about him.
He is kind of like an alt country guy.
Okay.
He actually released an album this year called Weather Vanes, which was great. He collaborated a bit with John Prine.
Okay.
He's been around the block. He's a young guy. He's probably in his early 40s at this point. But he's definitely making some moves around the scene right now. So it's pretty cool. Definitely check him out if you
Let's
get a
do
chance.
this. Let's take another quick break, and I'm going to give you something to think about. I want you to think about some tips you want to give to an artist coming up in the business. Okay.
Sure.
And then I want to talk about some of the venues and the people that you played with, because I found it kind of interesting. No, kind of interesting. I found it very interesting of who you've been able to either be on stage with or play with. And I want to explore that, because a lot of people, I shared the stage with so-and-so, but I never played with them. They don't say that in the bio. I'm interested in your experiences. So there's so much to talk about with Dave Marsh, and we'll be right back. Stick with us, everybody. We'll be right back.
The Long Island Sound is here to help you connect with local artists. Follow us on Instagram for the latest up-to-date podcast episodes, and also to connect with your local artists and their upcoming shows.
So we're back with David, or Dave Marsh. David, I don't know. He said call him David in the beginning, and then he said you can call me Dave. I'm totally freaking confused. But I'd be remiss if we didn't continue our conversation of Cassandra House, who's a phenomenal vocalist, singer-songwriter, and someday, if I'm lucky, she'll come on the podcast. She's probably listening right now. So this is how I goad people into the next interview, because, I
think you got a good shot.
We're talking about music. We're having a good time. I'm not giving you tough stuff yet, right, Dave? Tell her it's okay.
Totally.
It's okay to come on the podcast.
Cass, come on
Tell
the
me
show.
More. That's it. You got an invitation from Dave.
There you go.
So tell me more about Cass.
So we started playing at the Grey Horse Tavern together, and as time went by, we built on and on. She had opened for us at the Bolton Center from us to Dayton. She opened from us to Dayton, and then for a time I had John playing cello with her. So it was John, Cass, and myself, and then it's so funny because in this little music scene, we just grab from who we know. It's like, hey, I played with this guy. I think he might be good. So at the time, my brother had a band. My little brother John, who I don't think you've met yet, but he's also a musician. He plays around on the scene. But he had a band called Sunrise Skyline, and his guitar player I've known since he was 15 years old. I recruited him to come and play with Cass, and his name is Anthony Pravada. And so he came and started playing guitar with Cass, and then it was John and Cass and I, and then we had played with, I think Rob Brewy.
I know the name.
He's also a local songwriter, and Chris had just finished playing on Rob's album, and Cass opened for Rob for his album release, and Chris was there, and then Chris started playing with Cass. So then it was, and then Chris, we lost our drummer, and then Chris started playing with Miles to Dayton. It's like everybody borrows from everybody.
We're talking about, for those who are just coming in, we're talking about Chris, the great Chris Marshak.
Yes. So,
it's really cool.
Then,
it's really cool how bands get curated, or groups, or combination of who's opening up for who. There's real magic in that for sure. I think it's meant to be. And
then we made an album with Cass, with Chris's friend Ben Wish, who I'm sure you're familiar with. And Cass released The Rome. That little group plays on it, and the rest is history.
Now, when you played the Great South Bay Music Festival this past summer, Was that the first time that Cass and you played that festival?
That's the second or third time. I think it's the third time we played the main stage with Cass. She got a prime slot this year on that main stage, which was really great. Miles to Dayton's played it a bunch of times as well. So we're all pretty comfortable with Great South Bay. Miles to Dayton's been playing it since its inception. I think we missed 1 year. Okay. We've played it every year. We're pretty tight with Jim Faith.
Yeah, I had a good interview with Jim about the music festival, and it was really interesting. And he talked about the progression of, going from the alternate stage and going up to the main stage. It's kind of like a proving ground going from the minors to the majors. So there's something to be said about doing that. So talking about venues, and you did mention the Bolton Center. The Bolton Center in Bayshore was just Mr. Bolton bought it back, I think, and
yes.
Rejuvenated. So we'll see how that goes. And so what are some of your favorite, and not just limited to Long Island, what would you say your favorite venues to play in, or where you had a really great experience where it was like, wow, this is just heaven?
I do love a lot of venues on Long Island. When we were, starting out Miles to Dayton, John and I had a punch list of all the different places that we wanted to play, and I can happily say we pretty much played all of them. One of them was the Paramount, which we played 5 or 6 times, opening for Big Shot, which was a lot of fun. We opened for Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes, which was a lot of fun.
Great. I saw Southside Johnny and Little Feet at the Westbury, and cool. They were great. And cool. Then they had the horn section from one group come over, and it was just a lot of fun. We now have the Argyle Theater right in Babylon, in my hometown, that I hope they do more local stuff. They lean towards the tribute stuff, which is okay. But sure. I'm just all about original music. It's just, there's something about it, A
couple of festivals out east called the NoFo. That was probably about 10 or 12 years ago now. The lineups on that were amazing. We played with Pat from the Smithereens.
Oh, okay.
With Yorma. We played with Richie Havens. And they were all on the bill with us. And the cool thing about that was that there were no, backstage. It was like everybody, it was just an intermingling little thing. So certain people we did get to talk to, which was really kind of cool. So we got to cross-pollinate with a lot of artists that were really, that we knew, that we never thought we'd be in the same place with.
Do me a favor for those musicians that are listening to the podcast right now. Because I think that is like heaven, right? Pull back the curtain more. You're kind of milling about. Are you personally awestruck a little bit? Or are you just guys walking up to other guys and talking about music? What's it like?
I'm the worst with being starstruck. It's embarrassing time backstage. You've heard of the Violent Femmes?
Yeah.
So the lead singer of the Violent Femmes was on that bill with us. And when I was in high school, for my senior talent show, I played one of their songs. I'm backstage and I see him, and I got him. I didn't know what to do, But I've had some other cool interactions with people. I got to meet Colin Hay from Men at Work.
Oh, okay, yeah, because he played at the Great South Bay, right?
Yes,
1 year.
But he's one of my heroes. I love him. If you ever get a chance, he's got a fantastic documentary called "Waiting for My Real Life to Begin." And it's all about his journey from being in Men at Work to, losing all of that and having to start over again as a solo artist. And it's fascinating.
Oh, interesting. I
got to meet him backstage at Great South Bay, and he came off stage, and I came around the corner, and he was brushing his teeth. I was like, okay. Hey, man. I'm like, that was a great set. He's like, thank you very much. I was like, oh, okay. And then I got to talk to him. And he was just super down to earth, really nice guy.
Anybody who brushes their teeth in public better be a little wacky or down to earth. Yeah.
I think a little bit of both. He was great. There are certain people that don't want to talk after, they go and confine themselves to their trailers and But I haven't really had too many experiences where that's been the case. I mean, we were backstage
Right.
watching Colin Hay, and I'm standing like almost right next to Graham Nash, and he was cool with that. I almost, but of course, with my starstruckness, I was like, can't talk to him. But like, we're standing by the sound booth on the side of the stage, and there's Graham Nash, like literally 10 feet away from me. It was amazing.
My closest celebrity encounter was with Susan Tedeschi after one of their shows at the Beacon. A friend of mine at work's brother-in-law is the sound guy for them, and we got backstage passes. And I actually brought Mike Nugent. This is just a quick, cool story. Mike played with Susan at a Rochester festival, and separately with Derek Trucks in Atlanta. Okay, and there was something where like some guy's music blew all over the place, and so 4 hours before the show, my friend Brian says, "Hey, one of the guys can't come. Can you think of anybody?" I'm like, "I got the guy." And Mike came along, and we were able to go backstage. So, by the way, Susan was just like your next door neighbor, just a real sweetheart. Mm-hmm. But I got to be honest with you, I was like starstruck. I mean, I usually talk to everybody about the podcast, and I was like looking at my buddy. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm keeping my mouth shut. I'll be a good boy. I won't push it, And it was just kind of just a nice encounter. It's just we didn't even take pictures. I snuck a little picture with my iPhone just to prove that my buddy was there. Because no one would believe me.
Sometimes I think we forget that they're people just like us. And especially musicians in that. I think in this kind of genre, in a way, you have your Americana, more on the folk basis, the folk rock. Everybody seems a little bit more grounded, Like I remember, like Cass, we'd played a few gigs with Amy Helm. Whenever I see somebody that whenever I get to play with somebody or that I've seen, it's always very strange for me, Like so, I had seen Amy Helm. Miles Dayton opened up for Levon Helm's band, I think in 2012. We played out east, and Levon
upstate?
had passed away.
Oh, out east.
No, out east at Peconic Bay Winery. Levon had passed in April, and they were still scheduled to play, and his band still came and played. So I got to meet Larry Campbell and Teresa Williams and Amy, and it was an amazing show. I was just very intimidated, because you think of them as these people when you've seen them live. That ironically enough, that New Year's I had gone to the Ramble and seen them play with Levon, and then Levon died in April. And then the next thing I know, it's July, and we're opening for them. I'm like, this is crazy. So, I'm super intimidated by, the fact that here's, these people that I just saw like a few months back, and now I'm playing a gig with them. Like, this is crazy. But Amy's been super cool. Like, and we've had a few interactions with Amy over time, even up to now. But like, I remember like going to a City Winery gig to see her play. I was downstairs at City Winery, and she came out of the bathroom. She's like, hey, and she's like, hi, Dave. And I was just kind of like, she knows my name. This is crazy. And she's like, and she just gave me this awkward look, because I was, of course, wearing my starstruck face, because but she's super chill,
right.
Like,
who's that? Who's Dave? Like, I don't know, some guy with a dumb look.
But exactly, like you forget sometimes that they're people, they have lives, and pretty cool.
I agree. You just gotta be transparent and be yourself. And I think the more relaxed you come across, it makes it easier for people to talk to you, for sure. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this. So going into the break, so a lot of people, and I read this somewhere just recently, singer-songwriters are not, there aren't just two, like starving musician and superstars. There's a whole gamut of people in between. But I'd like you to talk to the up-and-coming artists that are, going out, getting gigs, trying to be full-time musicians. If you looked at your younger self, or you look at these, let's say young artists, could be an older artist too, is what advice would you give them about their art and the business? I
would probably say don't be closed-minded to, different styles of music.
Okay.
Try and listen to everything that you can listen to. I find lately that a lot of people, you can bring up certain groups from yesterday, and a lot of people don't even know who you're talking about. and I feel that there's so much great music. I mean, I think that with the invention of streaming and, all these different, it's like eliminated the record label in a way. You have this,
Right.
you have this massive abundance of music now, right? You can, I mean, I could go on my phone right now and pull up anything I wanted to listen to. I want to listen to this, I can find it, but it's available to everybody now, and everybody can put all their music. So I feel like we have such an abundance of music now that certain things are getting lost and certain things are getting forgotten. Right. And, I feel like everybody should kind of have an understanding of certain things, like this, of certain groups and certain music. And so, don't be afraid to go out to an open mic night. You're never too big for that. I went last night. I had a blast. Went down to my buddy's open mic night and played a few tunes. And, it's great to have that melting pot of people, younger people and older people, and they're all getting up there and doing their thing. Have a respect for that. Have an understanding. Listen to what people are doing. Listen to what older people are doing. Listen to what people that are a little younger than you are doing. I still do it. It's like I'm always intrigued at what's being brought to the table. I hosted an open mic night at the Grey Horse for a long time, and that's one of the most incredible experiences, to watch people grow, to watch people evolve, and to influence them. There's always something there. To get up on a stage at an open mic night, for any, for professional to an amateur, it takes a lot of guts. And to get up there and pour your heart out for a bunch of strangers, I feel like it's a real test. But I feel like having an understanding of how other people play music is everything. Whoever thought I'd play in a Jimmy Buffett band for 20 years? I didn't listen to Jimmy Buffett. I accidentally wandered into an open mic night one night, and Ed Travers is like, "You play bass?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "What are you doing Friday night?" I'm like,
"That's it."
He's like, "My bass player is in jail, and I need a bass player. Can you fill in?" And I'm like, "Okay." And I went and learned, 20 Jimmy Buffett songs. Whoever thought I would play with that guy for 20 years? It's crazy.
Well, I agree with you. I'm driven by also the diversity of listening to stuff, because I found out as I was getting older, I tended towards the music I listened to in high school in the 70s. And I'm a big Neil Young fan, Crosby, Stills and Nash and Jackson Brown and all those artists. But I also had a hunger for, hey, I want to know what's out there. I started listening to, somebody turned me on to WFUV, the Fordham station, which I think is a great station that is very diverse. You learn about all these different people I never heard of. I was ashamed to say I didn't know who John Prine was 10 years ago. And then some, I think it was Ed Travis who said, "John, you know who John Prine is? This song, that song." I'm like, "Oh God, yeah, now I get it." And then as I'm talking about John Prine, I'm thinking about the experience, of an open jam. So I think there are great musicians, great songwriters, and then there are some that also are great entertainers that can bring that presence, that transparency, being very comfortable with themselves to the audience. And that's what I kind of look for. If I feel like you're singing to me, man, you just won me over. And if you throw in a few words and a joke and a wink and a nod, man, that just made my day, and that's why I love live music.
Two people we've talked about already, Colin Hay and John Prine. I mean, if you ever want to get a lesson in stage presence, those guys take the cake. Colin Hay, amazing storyteller. John Prine is a great storyteller. He's funny. He can make you laugh and then just completely wreck you with his next song. I got to see him before he passed away. I saw him 4 times.
Oh, wow.
In like a year and a half. I was obsessed with him. So much that we had tickets, to see him, post-pandemic. So I was supposed to see him in June of 2020, and he had passed away, sadly.
From COVID, yeah.
Yeah.
So those who are watching, you'll see off to Dave's left shoulder a picture of Geddy Lee. Tell me about Geddy Lee.
Oh, I love Geddy Lee. I love Rush so much. It's one of my favorite. It's somebody introduced me to Rush when I was a kid, and there was no turning back. I was just blown away. I have a weird thing about crazy time signatures. I love jazz. I love, progressive music, and I love when something gets inside my head, and I'm like, this is messing with my rhythmic pattern in my head. It's like, what's happening? But I love this so much. This is so interesting to me. So I became a diehard Rush fan. I wish I could say I saw them as many times as a lot of other people, but I've probably seen them 8 or 10 times. But one of my favorite bands.
Oh, wow. A band that nobody can really lock into any genre. They're almost undefinable, which I think it almost like an Emerson, Lake and Palmer style of, three guys that I remember Neil Peart was saying, he goes, yeah, we tried to be three guys to sound like an orchestra and bring all this sound in. And when you realize it's really just three guys, it's mind-blowing.
Unbelievable.
It really is.
When you see them, and to see them live, I'm so thankful I saw them as many times as I did, because they were just, mind-blowing. They're so great. But I got to see Geddy a couple of weeks ago. He had a book signing at the Beacon Theater. He released his autobiography, and it was just really interesting. I finished his book, which is amazing. He talks about his life and rock and roll, and his parents are Holocaust survivors, and just everything about how Rush became Rush. It was just really incredible story.
Call from one of the stories, Neil Peart was working in his dad's hardware store, and they just kind of pulled him out of that life. It was just a very romantic type of, come on, let's go, and man,
coming on the road.
Rush wouldn't be Rush with any of the three guys. Would not be Rush. Yeah. You take one of them out, and they're all obviously extremely accomplished. And the funniest thing to me is that they actually opened up for Kiss. You know what I mean?
I know.
To me, that's the same story of Jimi Hendrix opening up for the Monkees, which he did.
For the Monkees, I know. I think he only did only did 2 dates with them though, which is pretty funny. Jimi Hendrix. I think they were just kind of I don't know if this is working out. I don't think he played the full tour with them, which is pretty funny. But,
yeah, they were probably like, oh, this guy's too good. Get rid of him.
Probably.
Well, let's do this, Dave. Let's just take another break, and we'll be back with Dave Marsh. Hang with us, everybody. I'm so excited about our new sponsor, Connect with Stick. The founders of Connect with Stick had an aha moment when they discovered that big business had an edge with text marketing. They developed a program to bring text marketing down to small business, where you can drive business into your establishment and make your slowest days some of your most profitable days. I experienced it myself. I'm so happy they're a sponsor. Go to Connect with Stick, mention the Long Island Sound for the referral, start your free trial, and I tell you, once you get hooked on it, you're going to love it.
It was interesting because out of the pandemic, I think it was 2021, Cass got booked to play the May Day Music Festival. So she was gonna open the main stage, and we had just come out of the pandemic, and we were, I just remember getting ready to go and play that day, and I hadn't played in front of a large crowd of people, and I can't even think of how long. So I just remember waking up and being so nervous, so freaked out. I haven't experienced it in so long, and I remember I can't.
Would you have was it a panic attack, or
it was
just anxiety, or?
I remember I actually went on YouTube and searched 5-minute meditations to try and calm myself down, because I was so bugged out. Because I guess it had just been that anxiety of it. It was anxiety, it was excitement at the same time, but it had been so long since we had done that. And when we were about to walk on stage, I turned to Cash. She's like, "You okay?" I'm like, "I had the craziest morning. I'm shaking like a leaf." She goes, "You too?" I'm like, "Yeah." And when I heard that she was there, feeling the same way, I was like, all right, cool. Or at least we're on the same page. And then we got up, and then like it took a couple of songs, and I started to like kind of feel a little bit more loose and more comfortable, and then it just, everything was cool. But I still had, moving forward as the months went on, every time I would go on again, it was still kind of that same jitteriness to get up on stage and do it again. And probably up to this year, Great South Bay this year is when it was like, all right, this is cool, we're good, let's go. And it felt like it used to feel again. So strange.
Would you categorize it as like a type of stage fright, or like
it was almost to a level of stage fright. It is. It did feel a bit like stage fright. It was, it's crazy to say that because I've been doing this for so long. You get to a point where it's like not even a thing anymore. I mean, I have my sister's kids, my sister John and my sister have 4 girls, and they come up on stage with us now. They've played, we've done Bradstock. They've come up on stage in front of crowd 100,000 people, and then they did the Long Island Bluegrass Festival. John brought them all up on stage. They sang. They have no fear of a crowd, but I think about how it affected me. Like you get to a point where you become desensitized to that. It's like being a baseball pitcher. You're like, I can focus on what I have to do. For some reason,
right?
That's so strange. It wasn't there. And I just remember walking up there and being like, what's going on here? And I'm like, all right, it's like I have this huge knot in my throat. It's like, all right, just keep your head down if you got to keep your head down. But just, try and, just
and
do
plow
your thing,
through
man.
it.
Just go. Yeah. And it ended up being fine.
Wow.
But still, like, I was like here instead of being like, all right, cool. Let's just, let's go. I was very, on edge. And sometimes you play a little better that way.
Well, let me ask you this then, because I equate a lot of the performance that a musician does on stage to public speaking. There's a different, like when I public speak I used to have a problem when I used to public speak in a boardroom and sit down and catch somebody's eye until somebody told me some tricks. Never look them in the eye, look at their forehead, and they'll think you're looking at them in the eye, because I used to get caught by someone's expression and lose my train of thought. In a similar way, I wouldn't call it stage fright. I've been in front of a large audience, maybe, 2,000 people, and I would get, kind of caught up, like almost like, I don't know, a head shake or something like that. And I was able to snap out of it. But there was also techniques and I've had people say, hey, when you're talking, I'm curious about this from a musician standpoint, when I'm speaking to a larger audience, you have to exaggerate your hands because, you're small and you got to be a little bit bigger. Is there any difference with you, or is it just amplification between when you play a festival and when you play in a bar? Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. It's a really great setup for what I'm going to tell you right now. Like,
okay,
going into Great South Bay this year, right? Going and playing a bar gig, right? You have a 3-hour gig, right? You go in, you can do your thing. It's much more loose. It's like,
right.
You know what you're going to play. You have your sets all like ready to go. And you have 3 hours to be you, and you have all your little bumps, and you're gonna hit some roadblocks here and there along the way, and it's comfortable, but everybody's still having a good time. A festival, Great South Bay, especially this year, Miles Dayton gets up to play. We have 40 minutes to play, and
right.
It's an intense feeling to go up and play a 40-minute spot on a festival like that. It's totally different. The vibe is like the intensity, the delivery. You're playing for people that don't know who you are. You need them to know who you are, but you want to catch those people. You want them to like you. It's like they're walking by, you want to pull them in. And it was that with Miles, and it was the same thing with Cass. It's like, all right, we've been given, when we were on the main stage with Cass this year, it was like, all right, we got to, we're put here for a reason. We got to deliver. Let's do it. You know, we came out swinging. Same thing with Miles to Dayton. We were all over the place. We were bouncing all off the walls. We had a great time. Presentation is so much different because you have this small window of time, and it's like almost goes back to what I was saying about playing in front of my family. That, you know, that tension of like, I have to play good. I have to do this. I have to deliver my best for these people. I want them to have an understanding of why this means so much and why they should like what I'm selling them, you know. I hope that makes sense.
Right. No, it does. And, you know, as you're speaking, I'm thinking of an analogy of, you know, taking a boat ride. You know, when you got three hours to belt something out, you're taking a rowboat and you're enjoying the scenery and you kind of going through it. And when you're in a festival in 45 minutes, you're on a speedboat. You know, you both may get to the same destination, but there's different tactics on how to navigate that. If I can kind of mix metaphors,
absolutely,
you know, into that. All right, so let me throw something else at you. Okay,
sure.
So on one end, you got John Entwistle from the Who, the bass player, Thunderfingers or whatever they call him, right? I think the guy was like his feet were in cement. And then you've got Flea, right? You've got Flea on the other end of the spectrum, who is like, you know, an acrobat, you know, wearing a sock on his genitals and playing all over the place. Where are you between wearing a sock on your genitals and John Entwistle? Well, please don't do that.
I wouldn't. But sock on my genitals aside, but I would definitely probably fall more along the lines of Flea. I like to jump around. I like to move around on stage, and the music moves you. So with Miles, I've always been known to kind of bounce around. This year at Great South Bay, I was like a slinky. I was everywhere. I was having a great time. I was so excited too. I was so happy. Like I was saying, like that feeling kind of went away. That weird feeling had gone away, and once that kind of settled in, and you know, it's an attestament to playing with Miles to Dayton. I've had it happen a few times where it's like, I'm so happy to be playing with my family. It's so important to me.
Yeah.
You know, and it's coming up on 20 years of making music with these people. You know, there's times I look over and I'm like, you know, we've been through so much together, you know, and when you're in a band for 20 years, it's like, everything, you know, every song becomes more, you know, becomes more real. Like, they're stories of our life and our journey over time, especially Miles to Dayton. Their songs are very, very personal. And that's always been a really big thing with John and myself as well as songwriters in the band. It's always been very personal and our journey in life. And I don't know if you know, but that's what Miles to Dayton is. Miles to Dayton.
I have no clue.
The miles that you travel in life from beginning to end. Dayton was John's grandfather, and he looked up to him and loved him very much. When he passed away,
oh wow!
You know, he was, you know, he lost somebody that was so important to him. Miles to Dayton is the miles in life that you travel until you see that person again.
Oh, thanks so much. Thanks so much for sharing that. I should have asked that question, but thanks for sharing that. And I think, you know, of the artists that I've spoken to and the ones that I really admire, there's this huge risk of being extremely transparent, right? You're at the edge of that cliff and you're like, boom, here's my heart, chew it up, spit it out. Here's my heart. That's one aspect of it. The other thing, and you were talking, you know, and why I asked the question of what type of bass player you are, as far as movement, is that I believe, and I can give you an audience perspective, is this guy's having fun. I see the joy in these people. That gave me permission to say, I'm having fun with this too. Because if you're having fun, it's like contagious laughter, in my opinion. Kind of a weird thing to say, but I'm watching people have fun. It gives me permission to have fun. You're dancing around. Hey, I can dance around too. If you can do it in front of 1,000 people, I can do it in front of the 5 people around me. And then that's where music, in my opinion, brings us to this other place. It's a moment in time, but it takes me away from my troubles, or on the converse, it helps me say, yeah, I went through that shit too. And yeah, look, he got through it. Right?
Yeah.
And that's where
totally
I
man.
think that, that whole transparency thing. I mean, that's what I love about you can hear a recording, right? And you get emotion from it, but seeing something live, getting that experience, and then seeing the humanity of people, and particularly those who've woodshedded their craft, and you guys make it look so easy, and there's billions of hours behind it, that sort of thing. That's what creates a great experience that I always like to tout. I'll say, hey, you know what? I can send a bar. I'm looking for a gig for my friend. I can send him here's his music on Spotify. But I always ended up saying, but until you hear him live, you really haven't heard him, And there are a few artists that I've seen where they've done the album exactly the same, and I'd be like, I didn't come here to hear the album. I can hear the album at home. I want to see how you mix it up, how you take me into a different place with the music, and that's the cranky critical me.
I appreciate that you mentioned the transparency, and I really think that is something that also brings a crowd closer to you. When Miles to Dayton, we're a family band. We have family interaction on stage. We rib each other left and right. We make fun of each other on stage. We don't take ourselves seriously. We have fun. But at the same time, it's welcoming that crowd into that. And we've made so many friends over time. People that have, become like family to us, that were just people in the crowd. We go to people's houses. They babysit my sister's kids. They take them on, they come camp. I mean, there are people that followed us that were Miles to Dayton fans that go camping with Krista and John every year. They go upstate to the Adirondacks and they rent out a plot and camp with Krista and John. We have so many great relationships that we've developed and made friends, but it's because of that ability to be welcoming. It's funny, we talk about even talking about Geddy Lee before, there's a part where he talks about, we took ourselves so seriously for so long, and we kind of we're like, why are we doing this? This isn't who we are, let's be real for these people. And he's like, when we kind of switched over and became real, our crowd changed again. People had a better understanding, we made fun of ourselves. We had a good time. We could still deliver that music. John Prine's the same way, he's funny. He makes jokes about himself. There was one point when we went to see John Prine and they were tuning up his Martins, and he's got these incredible Martin guitars, ancient, he's tuning them up, and then some guy, he'd play a song, some guy would come out and bring him another beautiful Martin guitar. And the guy's walking away with the guitar. He goes, just so you know, when I'm done with them, we don't retune them. We just burn them. It's just
oh, Jesus.
Cracking up. It was just so funny. It was oh my God. He just had that way, you're so into it, but sometimes to break that tension and create that comfort, that's that transparency.
As you were talking about the family band, right? The family band. And, I was thinking about, have you ever gone to somebody's house where, Thanksgiving dinner, whatever, you're the guest, right? And I think it can go a couple of ways. One, it can go, and I'm going to equate this to how I experienced your band, is, hey, they came, we welcomed them into our home, our musical home, okay? And we made them comfortable as if they were sitting in our living room, and you join, as the audience, join in on the conversation, okay? The other way it can go is, hey, this is an inside joke. We'll fill you in later. That dynamic can happen. I've seen that with a couple of bands where there was almost too much joking that it created a separation, at least for me. I can only talk about my experience. But I think the magic comes to it of, hey, you know what? And I've said this before, and I said this about Ed Travis too. I feel like I'm in his living room, and he's singing to me. And that type of being very comfortable, I'm letting my guard down now, so I can take in what I'm listening to, and I'm brought to another world. where I'm forgetting my troubles and forgetting that I just, had an argument with my wife or whatever. And now I'm in this enjoyment experience, which you can only get with live music and an entertainer or group of entertainers who know how to invite you into their home and share this meal of music with you. And that's it. Some people are natural at it. Some people it takes a little time to get there. But when you get there, you hear it from, I'm sure you hear it from your fans, that tell you the same thing that I'm telling you, which I think is fun and magical for sure.
We're fortunate to have made so many great friendships.
Yeah, we covered a lot of good ground here. All right, let me ask you this. Now I'm going to go to my James Lipton question list.
All right.
See, I'm being transparent. I could have I could have BS'd and said I came up with this question. This question to you, Dave. What do you value most in your friends?
Oh, wow. Just love and appreciation, understanding, people that listen, that means everything. Understanding more than anything, to have somebody that gets you and understands you and is a good listener. That's everything in a friend.
All right. Next question. What talent would you most like to have?
Oh, wow.
See, this is my look of. There you go. There you go.
What talent would I?
Chew on that for a minute.
I'd still love to be able to play the drums. I always wanted to play drums, and like I said, when I wanted to play in elementary school, I wasn't allowed to because the drum seats were all taken, so I never got to do that. And then, as time went on, it was like, okay, I'll play guitar. Okay, then I'll play bass. Okay, and then I just never went back to playing drums again. But I'd love to be able to play drums.
So do you see what you're doing now? You've just threatened Chris Marshak. Now you're going to be bumping him one day. You're going to throw the bass aside.
I highly doubt that.
Say, Chris, you're out of here.
Doubt it. I love playing with Chris. As
By
a
the
bass
way,
player.
I do love Chris has, for those who are listening, look up Chris Marshak on Instagram. He's got these short videos that he ties in about drumming and music that are just gems. And when I saw those videos and after interviewing, I'm like, man, you got to be he was not a co-host, he was a guest host on the podcast, and I'm so glad I invited him to do it. All right, this is one last big question for you. You ready?
Go ahead.
What turns you on? All right, listen up now. You're going to have to think here. What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally? What turns you on? Don't worry, I got plenty of tape left on the machine, so take your time.
What turns me on?
So now the audience realizes that I do not share any of these questions prior to the podcast.
It's funny, there's a lot of moments. I watch a lot of music documentaries. I don't know if you watch as many as I do, but
oh yeah, sure.
Sometimes there's those moments where you see resonance and you see how a person's music affects people, or you see interaction with another artist and you just see it. I watched a documentary on Willie Nelson the other day, and there's a scene from his 70th birthday party, and Ray Charles is covering one of his songs and he's singing it to him, and Willie is just, he's got nothing. Like you just see him standing there and he's like, talk about somebody that's very transparent, he jokes about himself all the time. But you see him watching Ray Charles play this song, his song to him. And Willie is just, bawling. He's just totally taken by Ray Charles. And it's like, it's a beautiful moment. That gets me. Like, when you see it happening, you see the effect that music has on people. That gets me. That gets me good. And
cool.
Yeah, even just human interaction in that way. I'm a total mush. Like, I get emotional over everything and cry at the drop of a hat. My girlfriend thinks it's the funniest thing ever. But nice. another person like that has that type of that creates that, and isn't necessarily musical. I don't know, for some of you younger folks, Fred Rogers is like one of my favorite people in the entire world. That's one of the biggest influences on me. To see him interact with people and the lessons that he's taught over time, that's one of the things that resonates most with me. And treating people and having a communication with people. But seeing him speak and how he speaks to other and how he worked with children, it was always just amazing to me. And how compassionate, somebody that has compassion, when you see that, how that resonates, it's that gets to me. That's important to me. So
right, the ability to empathize and emote at the same time. When you were talking about Fred Rogers, have you watched Ted Lasso?
No.
Oh,
my mom's constantly on me about watching it.
you gotta. So we binged Ted. We didn't have whatever it was on Apple TV, whatever.
Right.
It was so good. It was so good that my wife and I, night after night, would be okay. We've done whatever we're going to do. Can we fit in Ted Lasso? Yeah, we can fit it in. After watching it, now I can think of Fred Rogers. It's like I want to be Ted Lasso, and he had this quirky ability to bring the best out in people and recognize a great humanity in other people, even when in extremely difficult situations. And I won't give the whole show away, but it goes from dealing with suicide to divorce to new job, new country, the whole gamut of things, and how he brings these people together and makes them grow. And I told my daughter this. I said, you know what? I want to be Ted Lasso. And, it's a lesson of reminding us, how to be better humans, out there. Anyway,
absolutely.
Dave, I got it. We probably got another episode coming out of this. I really enjoyed my time with you. Really, no, thanks. I mean that very, very sincerely. Thank you for sharing your experiences. It's going to mean a lot to the audience out there. I can't wait to see you guys play.
Can I
can't wait to kick John's butt. Yeah, but first I'm going to mention I'm going to kick John's butt and get him on the show. And Cassandra,
right.
We're going to have fireworks at the Usco house. When Cassandra says, "Yeah, I'll do it." You can mention many more things. Go ahead, Dave.
Sure. I just wanted to mention I'm currently working on a project called the Famous Dr. Scanlon Band, which is a tribute to my friend Travis McKevney. I'm playing in a band with Cass, Jerry McKevney, who's Travis's dad, Pete Mancini.
Yep.
John Rienzi from Quarter Horse, and our friend Joe Caggiano. We're getting ready to record an album in the next month or so of Travis's music called Dublin to Duluth, and keep an eye out for that. It's going to be pretty cool. I don't know if you know of Travis McKevney.
Yeah, so I've had Pete Mancini on the show a few times, and he just came out. In fact, Travis's dad played at my father's place with him, and then I made the connect. Oh yeah, I know he passed. I know there's a great love for the guy from all these different people, all these different musicians that I see on Facebook. Give me some insight into Travis and why you guys are doing this, and what was really special about
Travis
about
is
him.
A brilliant songwriter. I mean, just a brilliant songwriter, an amazing person. Dry sense of humor, really, really quirky, but just very smart, very quick-witted. Another connection I made through the Grey Horse Tavern, and a great friend. During the pandemic, I grew super close with Travis, and when we lost Travis, it was heavy. It was really hard, especially somebody so young. And Travis was talk about a prolific songwriter. He was churning out some of the, some amazing music. He's a Grammy Award-winning, songwriter. He wrote music for the infamous String Dusters, which is, I think Andy Falco.
Oh, sure.
That's Andy Falco's band, and they won Album of the Year. One of his songs was one of the biggest hits off of that album that they won the Grammy for, which is fascinating. And he had the plaque in his
amazing
in his room. It was really cool. But I mean, Travis was he had written all these songs, and they were getting ready to go and record the songs, and they'd been practicing, and sadly Travis passed. And when when we all felt it was the right time, we got together and said, all right, let's take these songs and let's see what we can do with them. And we got together and we've been playing them for probably about 2 years now. We had a GoFundMe. We put a GoFundMe together and raised money to go and record the album. So we're going to be doing that in February with Andy Falco at the helm.
Oh, wonderful. I got to talk to all you guys about it, and happy to promote it because it really sounds like a great project. And, he'll live on through his music, and it's a great tribute to do that. So, wow.
Thanks, Steve.
It sounds, I'm glad you brought that up. That's great.
I can't believe I forgot to bring it up.
I mean, come on. But no, this is so we can leave that. I'll put a teaser in front that brings it right to it. So, cool. Oh, that's really great. So, did you have a good time? Would you come 100%. Back?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Can you drag Cassandra along with you? I got an idea. This is what you'll do. Invite Cassandra over the house, right? And just sit her in front of the computer, and then I'll pop up.
And then
I'll just start drilling questions. I'll pop, just turn the computer on, and I'll be there. Like that.
She'll have no idea when I'm frantically rearranging the background so it looks cool.
Yeah. It's called We'll Shanghai her, and she'll be on.
Right on.
I hope she gets a laugh out of it.
She will.
All right, brother. Thanks so much. Really look forward to seeing you again in person and hearing you guys play. So thanks for being here. All right. Be well, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate the time you spent with us. Please subscribe and comment and visit us at gigdestiny.com. Until next time, be generous with your joy, keep your spirits high, and let the music take you on a journey. Be well. Peace.